Hey guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and in today's video we have a special showcase on Karnage the Anarch that we have available here. Now I want to give a shout out to InrY for loaning me his account. He has been able to complete every single rotation of sintranos since it has come out. What an absolute legend. That is a considerable amount of effort and time. I'm sure at some stages they have sat there hours upon hours grinding this through, and this means we can showcase Karnage, the latest mythical to come in, probably considering this is the soonest you can get him as of today. It's the first day that people have been able to acquire him. I'm going to do a full showcase on him, and I'm going to basically look at different content areas, like how good is he in Hydra, how good is he in Arena, and we're going to see how he is built. Now, there's an initial build here that InrY has put together. We probably will throw it through the optimizer to see if we can improve it. We did just do an upgrade to the optimizer to support passives where there are increasing damage based on accuracy. This applies to Gwendolyn and Karnage, so we're going to test that out, see how accurate that is as well. So let me give you a skill breakdown first of what this mythical champion can do. So we got two forms. On the base form, he will attack one enemy 2 times, has a 50% chance of removing one random buff from the target. Whenever an enemy hits this champion or an ally, he also has a 50% chance to counterattack. The chance is increased for each debuff on the enemy. So if there are 5 debuffs, anytime he is attacked or an ally is attacked, he counterattacks with this ability. It's a double hit A1. He is Spirit Affinity, so it's going to be pretty nasty into Rotus and a couple of the magic-based champions. But it is pretty good that you can get this kind of like Cardiel feeling to it. On the A2, he's going to attack one enemy 2 times, double hit again. Before attacking, he's going to swap the HP with an enemy, then steals all the buffs from them. It's a bit like how the Nogdar and Astrolith version works, where they swap HP. Also transfers all debuffs from this champion to the target and places Seal. This is a brand new debuff, the first champion of its kind to have Seal. This debuff cannot be removed. I'm going to explain what Seal is in a moment. This debuff also cannot be resisted or blocked if the target has 50% HP or less. So if they are below half health, it'll always place because it can't be resisted or blocked, and it also cannot be removed. So it's a pretty powerful thing. Now, what is Seal? Well, you can click on this info. It shows you all the descriptions for all the debuffs. Some of them are inaccurate, some of them are not right, but it's a pretty good place to go. And we can see right down the bottom, there is this brand new debuff called Seal. So there are 2 versions of this debuff, Seal and Master Seal. There is currently no actual gameplay content, boss, champion, anyone in the game that can place the Master Seal. This is sort of a TBD debuff that will come soon. But for the Seal debuff, it will block the effects from all gear sets, masteries, except stat boots granted by the artifacts and accessories, as well as masteries that only boost stats like discipline. So what is it actually doing? Well, if your gear set, your artifact set, ignores defense, this will stop it ignoring defense. If it has things like protection effects for placing buffs, it stops that ability. If it has things like reflex, relentless, it stops those effects. Anything that is not a stat-based effect will be blocked by Seal. Same as masteries, Helm Smasher. Additional damage increases based on like methodical, being on full health. Anything that is an actual modifier that isn't just stat will get blocked. Now this is incredibly powerful in the right setting, but it is also against a backdrop of polymorph being dominant, which kind of devalues it a little bit. The Master Seal version, however, will also block the effect from blessings. Now, this does change the game a little bit, but at the same time, unless we're going to get AoE Master Seals, it's probably not that powerful. And as I said, there's no way to use Master Seal in the game right now. So right now, this is the only champion in the game that can place a seal. It does make him unique, and it does mean that if you want to stop gear sets or masteries in Arena, then you can do so. If you want to really make that Arena nuke do no damage, then you can stop it completely. Very powerful on someone like a Rotus, for example. If you want to stop the ignore defense stacking of his passive, his A3, and Helm Smasher, it means you can stop him doing true damage. It's a little bit like Harima in that sense, but much more tricky to enable. Then on the A3, we've got an attack one enemy 3 times. The first hit places block passive skills. So we have our 3rd block passive skills champion after Ronda and Ramantu. So that's good. This debuff cannot be removed, and it's protected. The second hit places block active skills for 2 turns. This debuff cannot be removed, so we disable all of their abilities, and we steal 100% of the target's turn meter. Now, this is very oppressive, This is Galathea level progressive. If you haven't seen Galathea, he's one of the mythical champions. If you get tagged by any of his abilities, you will not be able to take a turn. He blocks your skills, he drops turn, he does loads of different things, he revives, Galathea goes and you just don't get a chance. A bit like Crixia. When that happens, you just the fight is over, a bit like our man's. This is very good against one single target. This would be very good against a Sun Wukong. This is very good against someone like a Harima. He's strong affinity into a Harima as well. So you can literally destroy a Harima with Karnage the Anarch. Now, the mythical passives are the most important thing to look at whenever you're looking at a mythical champion. Yes, the skills are important, but mythical champions are defined by the passives that they own, because those are the passives that really make sense in the majority sense of the case. Each hit this champion deals has a 50% chance of applying a debuff spread effect, taking one random debuff from the target and placing it on all enemies. Whenever this champion kills an enemy, has a 100% chance of applying a debuff spread, taking all debuffs from the target and placing them on all enemies. Now, this is incredibly powerful for PvE, but a lot of this base form, you'll be sitting there, you'll be telling me right now, Saf, you're off your rocker, this is terrible for Arena because of debuffs. We know that debuffs are bad against Polymorph. This is going to cause a lot of problems. Yes, it will on the base form. You probably will not use the base form too much. You might open with the A3 to get rid of something like Harima passive, because you can't cleanse this. You can block that, you can Stone Skin block it, but you can't get rid of that passive once it's on. And if you want to basically take away the Ignore Defense passive from Harima, or stop the Wukong from reviving, that's very powerful, that's a very big thing. And then you would transition to the alternate form for Arena. But for PvE, this is very good, especially for something like Hydra. Although this is not very good for Hydra, this is not very good for Hydra, and this is not very good for Hydra, the passive is very good for Hydra, and just constantly laying out single target damage is quite good. Now, it gets real interesting when we go to the alternate form. The alternate form is where this guy becomes supersonically strong, although I think the recent mythicals have kind of already got up to his level. When this was first announced, this guy was going to break the game. So we got an A1 here, attacks one enemy 2 times, heals himself by 20% of the damage, and a very similar feel to the base one. Whenever an enemy hits this champion or ally, there's a 50% chance to counterattack. The chance increases by 10% for each debuff on the enemy. So again, 5 debuffs, I'm always attacking with the A1. I'm permanently counterattacking. A2, attacks all enemies, ignores shield buffs. Very good into a bolster. Will also ignore ally protection buffs when attacking enemies under one or more debuffs, and unkillable buffs when attacking enemies under 2 or more debuffs. So if you're fighting a Leorius, you're fighting a Necret, if you can get some debuffs out there, it can help. Obviously, the Necret not so good because the Necret places block debuffs, so that's kind of a problem. But even if you just don't have any debuffs out here, it's still going to ignore all enemies. It's not a bad AoE. This is where it gets really strong. Attacks all enemies 2 times. If a target is killed by this skill while they're under 3 or more debuffs, it will block, revive them instantly. Also heals this champion by 30% of the damage dealt. This is a very strong multiplier. Now, one thing you have maybe not noticed is all of his damage is based on attack plus accuracy. And this is an important factor, because when we get to the passive, this champion's crit damage increases by 1% for every 3 points of accuracy they have. This is the same as Gwendolyn's passive, but she's every 10 points. And that difference is huge, because this means if I've got sort of 300 points of accuracy, I'm getting 100% crit damage. When he gets a 6-star blessing, which you can get from the Cursed City of Sintranos, he'll get 90 accuracy at rank 5. Well, 90 points of accuracy is 30% crit damage. So he's getting 45 plus 30% crit damage. He's getting like more than anyone else. The other thing to note is ignores 10% of the target's defense for each debuff they are under. So this means once you have sort of 10 debuffs, he's doing true damage, but you don't necessarily need to be so strict to yourself. You can put him in an ignore defense set. Like here, we've got Merciless and Cruel, so he's in 40%. If you get then 6 debuffs out, he's doing true damage. If you have area bonuses, that's 20%. Well, now he's basically only requiring 4 debuffs to be doing true damage on all of his abilities. It really catapults him up to the highest sort of level of damage. So his alternate form is much more damage orientated. His base form is much more debuff and control. Both of them are very powerful and unique and very strong. Let's have a look at how InrY has built him so far in this initial one. So he's gone Merciless Cruel. If you don't know why people go this way, it's the highest form of ignore defense you can get. 40% flat is the best form of ignore defense from any artifact sets. We also get the chance to reset and reduce our cooldowns a little bit with this 30% chance. Most people I know will stick to a 6-piece bonus. Some people go to 9, but most people stick to a 6-piece bonus. In terms of masteries, we've got Helm Smasher. Again, we're indexing very hard into Ignore Defense here because I think he's considering from an arena setting, I'm probably not going to do many debuffs, so therefore I still need as much Ignore Defense. If I was building him more for Hydra, more for sort of Doom Tower, bosses, sintranos, those types of areas, then I've got area bonuses I can leverage. You would then probably consider moving away from Helm Smasher because you don't need that much Ignore Defense. He's gone from pretty much first hit arena build here to stay alive. Again, we got counterattack masteries. If you have debuffs, he's going to counterattack anyway, making these masteries pretty useless. You'd rather go sub turn meter. So those are like the adjustments. In arena where you can't depend on those debuffs, well, we've only got a 50% chance. I would still say even at 50%, probably this isn't worth it over something like just having Cycle of Revenge for more turn meter. Turn meter is very key in live arena at the moment, having more speed. So that's probably a bit of a change that I would do. But these offense masteries are pretty good. You're focusing purely on CC and one-hit damage and stuff like that. So let's take him in. Let's have a look at some animations here. Let's have a look at some play testing. Let's take him into Doom Tower. We've got some low-level floors here that we can test, so we're not going to use any of InrY's energy here. He's obviously using a double reset team. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this out and we're going to bring in Karnage the Anarch. He does have a 33% speed aura. So he's the highest speed aura in arena in the game. I think only Shazar is equal in this 33%. It's higher than Arbiter. It's higher than things like Sun Wukong, Shu Zhen. It is the highest in the game. So very good to pick in arena if you really want to go fast and win that race. We're now just going to set him up. We're going to do some debuffing here. So we'll probably bring Bad Alcazar. That'll give us some poisons. And we will also bring Lydia. Hopefully his Lydia isn't going to one-shot the enemies because we are on a low floor. So we've got the Lydia here. Let's just make sure he's got a build on his Lydia. I don't really know if he used it. Yeah, there we go. So that should give us 4 debuffs because we'll have Bad Alcazar who will be able to put out enough poisons here. And we'll then have the debuffs we need, which is going to give us true damage with what we have because we're going to have 4 plus 40%. That's going to be 80% plus the Helm Smasher. We should probably try and find 2 more debuffs just to always make it true damage. Let's bring a Theodore in as well. So we are going to have so many debuffs here. It's going to be quite insane. So we've got the decreased defense and weaken. Hopefully Lydia doesn't kill them. She didn't. Great. So we already have 3 poisons out as well. And we're going to do this without increased attack to start with. So we have all of these debuffs out. So let's just have a little look at the info panel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 debuffs in total. So 70% ignore defense. All of these effects here are not going to ignore defense on the base form, right? So the base form, it doesn't really matter. But if we kill someone, say like we go and target this and we kill him, then we'll spread all those debuffs even further. Look how many poisons we've just spread everywhere. It takes all of the debuffs from the enemy and it spreads it again. So whilst we can't respread things like decreased defense and weaken, we can spread more poisons. They're all under 10% defense. So what you can do in arena is you can use that to spread the debuffs and then set up your A3. So we're going to let the bosses, the mobs here take a few turns. They will probably kill themselves. There's this counterattacking going on. Every time, because there's so many debuffs, he's going to counterattack. And every single time he kills them with the A1, he spreads the debuff again. So what you're actually going to get in PvE here is a monster debuffer alongside someone else. If you actually put some debuffs against him, you can see we are constantly spreading those debuffs. Now we can set this up again because we have the skills back and we can try a different ability. So let's just throw a decreased speed out. So if we want here, we can see what his AoE is like. So again, he lost a bit of health. So what we can do is health swap. Oh, look at that animation there. And again, we've spread all the debuffs again. So let me just run through and run this on this alternate form. And then after this, we'll do a full damage test. So alternate form now. Ignore the debuffs are still important on his ultimate form because we want to make sure that we have that ignore defense maxed out as much as we can. So this, because he's in 40% permanent from his sets, will be true damage. So we can metamorph him. And now we can kind of see the damage output here. So we can kind of look at this and go, let's do an A1 to begin with. Let's actually do an A3 because he's going to counterattack anyway. This is his big ticket item. This is the one that will do the most amount of damage. Oh, look at that, one shot the wave. I mean, this is a very low form of Doom Tower. If we had this on the test server, then obviously I could go right up to the top stages. So it's very difficult to test, but you can see already the damage output is quite high. And we can try an A2. So this time we've only got a couple of debuffs. We're not going to do true damage. And we did weak hit a lot, as you would expect. No increased attack, and we did weak hit fair bits. But let's just see now how much he counterattacks for and how quick that is going to work through for us. Because anytime we're going to get attacked here, he will counterattack. 119,000 A1 counterattack, 160,000 is a lot of damage on a counterattack. Set it up again fully. Let's do the A3 one more time. It's going to one-shot probably. Oh, he summons 2 angelic forms. What a cool animation that is. Now, one of the areas that I want to benchmark here is Dragon 10 hard. We used to benchmark against Dragon 20 back in the day, but to be honest, damage has dramatically increased. And actually, the Dragon 10 hard is one of the hardest waves to defeat in all of the hard mode dungeons, right? It's the hardest one of the lot. Unlike previous stages where 25 Finite used to be the hardest. So let's just see how well his damage can do here. Let's just set up a full maximum damage with this build. Now, this isn't an optimized build as well, because we don't know how much accuracy, like how much accuracy is he truly rocking in this alternate form. He's only really rocking in Dragon here about 344 accuracy. So the balance of his accuracy versus damage is going to be interesting. But remember, that 344 on his alternate form will translate into an extra 114% crit damage. So in his alternate form, we're actually seeing him run at around about 400% crit damage, give or take, because it's 291 plus that 114, so it's going to be giving us a 405% crit damage, 8,000 attack, and that's really the secret damage you've got to be careful for here. You've got to monitor. So we do need an increased attack. Do we have someone that we can just boost with? What do we got here? Let's just bring a Duchess. Is she fast enough? Yes, let's just bring a Duchess here. So I'm going to use 20 energy here. We will finish the run so he doesn't lose everything. So we're going to set this up. We're going to decrease defense and weaken. Didn't quite land all of those debuffs there. We're going to poison. Poison. So we're now going to do true damage. And this, we're going to alternate form. So we got 2 options here. We can either use this A2 or we can use the A3. Let's just use the A3 here. 300,000 twice. So that was a 600,000 AoE on stage 10 of Dragon. This is a Seer level of damage. This is Seer level of damage because it is true damage, remember. That's the advantage when you get debuffs up here, and it's pretty easy to get your debuffs back. You can cycle through here. And now we're not necessarily going to be doing true damage. It's just a good, interesting test. We don't have increased attack. How good is it there? Not as good. So if you don't have the increased attack, you don't have the debuffs up, then the damage will obviously drop down. Which, you know, you would expect with most attack-based champions here. This isn't exactly like a team that I've sped-tuned. I'm just showcasing kind of like how it would work. Now, obviously, the 8-3 as well as a higher multiplier, which will mean that he will do more damage. But this is still okay, because if he gets attacked, then he can still deal damage. We'll really want to kind of take up these Chigors. 109,000 A1. Anytime that he's going to take damage, he's going to attack them and probably one-shot them. So it's not the end of the world if he doesn't go and clear them out one by one, because as long as they have some debuffs, the chances is pretty high, 81,000 twice there, that counterattack will take out all the enemies. So let's see how good he is at killing bosses, shall we? Now, obviously, we know the poisons here are going to do a lot of work, but we've now got the boss up to 6 debuffs here, or 7 debuffs, so it should mean that every single one of his abilities is going to ignore defense, because it's 10%, we're ignoring 70, plus the set is 40. This is why I said in PvE settings, you don't need things like Helm Smasher and necessarily Merciless Cruel. You can actually pull back a lot of your ignore defense because you can get it from area bonuses, and you can stack debuffs much more reliably. I'm thinking of places like Hydra. But we can see here the A3, 300 and 500,000. That's basically 600,000 level damage there on the A3. Let's just run it through here and let's see kind of what numbers he's going to do in this fight. He's going to then attack with his A1, 270 and 260. That was an A1, 450 to 500,000 damage. That's really, really crazy amounts of damage. Another one there, 240, 280. He did die, which is, you know, natural. He is glass cannon. We can just bring him back alive here. Get him set back up. He will be glass cannon. We do know this. He will die every single time. Okay, let's just let him die here. But those are the kind of numbers you can get. So if you can really, you know, keep him alive in these teams, the amount of damage he's going to be able to produce in a PvE setting is really, really top tier, right? It's really top tier. A lovely 5-star boot that instantly nobody would ever want. So that's kind of like a bit of his damage playtest. Now, let me just take him into arena in this build. We're in live arena, which is obviously not open, but we can take him into sort of classic arena here. And we can hopefully try and find some difficult teams. Now, Arena, this is a really bad time to do a showcase. Arena has just reset, so it's going to be difficult to find some teams. Obviously, InrY here's got terraces, which you would still want to keep, but we can probably sort of change this out here. Just bring in more of a typical team that I'm used to personally. But you'd want to build him in a speed setup here, Probably bring something like Armand's and then an Arbiter, right? This is the kind of setup you would need now. This is a very non-debuff setup. Let's kind of see how good he is in a non-debuff setup way. So we're going to boost it here. We're going to boost again. So we'll make sure we got all these. It's a 6-star protection Siffy. Of course it is. We all know Armand's is a little bit broken. So it's going to make this really easy. But then we can see this Master Seal in effect. So let's just see if he attacks and places these debuffs before attacking. Because before attacking, he's going to swap the enemy, then steal all the buffs. Also transfers and then places a seal. So let's just see if he can place the seal through affinity. He can. Okay. So that is really powerful. Now, it still killed me because clearly that didn't work as well as I hoped it would. But what's interesting about that is you can actually place the seal on negative affinity setups, which is really important. Because that means he is very good at stopping the Rotus Ignore Defense A3 capability when he doesn't get one shot. Obviously, sometimes it's still going to happen, but that is a possibility. Let's just steal all those buffs again. Armand's is utterly broken. We know this. And of course, we can use the A3 if we wanted to make sure he doesn't do that. And look at that. That is nuts. That is crazy. Okay, I've just realized what this can do. Even though we have Master Seal on Rotus, because we killed the Wukong, we spread the debuff from Rotus over to everyone else. That's insane. So now we have AoE protected block passive skills. That is absolutely broken in the right setup. Now, obviously, this is against the backstop of Polymorph. I know this. Everyone is probably screaming down the comment section saying, yeah, but Polymorph, he'd probably get sheeped. I get it. This is obviously a very low arena setting, but the power of that potentially is crazy. And obviously, when you come into here, we can then come in and just probably one-shot them in terms of damage. But in terms of a utility role, actually, that was quite strong. Being able to place the seal and then spread it to everyone when you kill them. Let's do this again. Let's boost around here. Let's just make sure we control. And we can place some debuffs here. So let's go on blocks and place some debuffs. Now, honestly, in a debuff setting, you wouldn't have as much damage as here. We could end up just killing them, but we'll see what happens. Like so. But there you go. Look, we placed it and we killed them because we placed it before we killed them. We placed it, killed them, and spread it to everyone. It's so powerful. In the right setup, if you can avoid Polymorph, that is incredibly powerful because we have now literally got we've got a protected seal debuff on every single enemy, which means all of their masteries and gear sets that have an effect now don't work. They are now blocked. They are now useless. And we can go up against this and we can block passives. It's really strong. So in a utility build, he's incredibly strong, I think, for this spreading of debuffs. It will be quite frustrating to fight him because every single time we'll spread it back around. And now that we've spread that to the Wukong, we can kill him and we could block passives. Let's see if we can find something competitive in the tag team. We're in gold 4 here, which means we're going to be finding significantly more powerful champions like this top team here. Let's give this a go over here. Let's see how useful he is against a fully awakened team. We can take out the Lazarus. He's going to fill that Lazarus role quite nicely. And we're going to put him in here. But as I mentioned, he's got a 33% aura. So we have a chance to win the aura. Now, we might just get Armand's. We'll have to see how this goes. We might just get absolutely destroyed by Armand's. We can stop him using his abilities, which will help considerably. We'll see how it goes. This is a bit of a weird experience for me because I've never had the opportunity to play with some of these mythical champions as well. So it's like a fun account. So there is a lot of Stone Skin. Now, Stone Skin is going to block those debuffs, but some of them can't be blocked. So it'll be interesting if they go through Stone Skin. Some effects go through Stone Skin, some don't. For example, Baron's A2 is guaranteed, but it doesn't place when there's a Stone Skin out. So we can try and remove all the buffs. Probably get rid of a few. There goes the Sheep Polymorph. Well, there's a counterattack we're going to instantly, which is great. And we're going to get Armand's. So this is the problem with Armand's and Siegfried. It's not great. But I mean, the Polymorph did kind of save us there from the Siegfried nuke. But we're probably just going to get absolutely destroyed. This is the experience of live arena. I'm like, I don't even know what happened. I just lost. Okay, let's try it against a different opponent. That was pretty rough, that last fight. Just kind of shows you the strength of something like Galathir and these mythical champions in arena now. They are... People used to say the mythical champions aren't that powerful. Well, I think now they are, essentially. Now they are powerful because we're starting to see them dominate the arena. Let's just skip through this fight here and try and get to the fight that we want to fight with the Karnage. So let's go and boost up here, and let's make sure that we lock out the abilities like so. There's that counterattack. We actually have killed someone already. Now we're going to have to fight a Marichka twice here, which is really powerful for Marichka. But again, this is what I mentioned about his A3 when we actually finally get a turn. Let's just metamorph her over into this other form. Did she do a shield? There we go. Let's just do this. Keep us all alive. So we're in this form now. This is where it's valuable. I can basically place block passives on everyone, spread it, and it's now protected, which means I can absolutely remove the Wukong from the fight. The hardest thing about Wukong tends to be is stopping him coming back alive. I'm able to A3, spread those debuffs because I killed the target with the A3, and then I can simply just kill the Wukong. And then we win that fight. His base form, as long as you can place some debuffs and you don't get polymorphed, is surprisingly strong. Now let's try his alternate form. I've only been really showcasing his utility. Let's try and see how strong he is if we take on a sort of a full damage option here. So we're going to fight this top team here, which is a very slow, tanky type of team. You see White King Narcissus is very popular. Ultimate Death Knight, we know, is a real pain in the backside. Let's see how well he does. He has strong affinity into the Ultimate Death Knight. This is a very valuable thing for us to have. So let's see how this goes then. So we're going to set up here. Obviously, Stone Skin is the meta right now because of our mans, but we can try and remove some of them. Let's see what we do. Lock them out. Okay, so great. So we've taken out a few things. So what we could do is we could begin by stealing some turn meter, which is always nice. We could begin by putting Seal to stop his gear sets, or we can just metamorph. Now, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to steal and place some block passive skills, and I'm going to target this guy here. Now, obviously, the first one, the block passive skills went on Ultimate Death Knight, but the block active skills now is protected, and I've got all of the turn meter from Narcissus, so it gives me a free turn. Then I'm going to metamorph into my alternate form, and I'm going to now start doing some damage. Let's see how strong this is. There's no debuffs out. We actually have the A2 here. Let's do the A2 because there's a shield. Let's see how much damage this can do. There's no debuffs out, so we are losing pretty much a lot of ignore defense. We will ignore 20% on the Ancora. Let's just see how strong this is. No increased attack. Oof. No increased attack, and we took out that Ancora. We took it out completely. Now, obviously, there's a revive that's going to come in here, probably. We're going to counterattack a little bit. So if we wanted to now, we can kill this, the Pythian, if we wanted to. I'm actually going to wait, and I'm going to attack this one on the right, because I want the enemy to revive, just so we can give it another go on the ally attack. There's that A1 happening again, because he attacked an ally, so therefore he will attack anytime an ally is attacked. He will counterattack. We're going to counterattack again. So even without debuffs, that counterattack, that's what I said about the defense mastery. You don't really need it, because he's going to counterattack quite often at a 50% rate. So it's absolutely not a problem for you to go something like Cycle of Revenge instead and just get some more turn meter. You will get this counterattack happening a lot. There's the revive. That's what I wanted to test. So now we've got this back in here. So he's got full attack damage. So how good is he without this passive that has this 10% ignore defense, right? This is going to do 0 ignore defense. So all we're at is 40% plus Helm Smasher, which is possibly 65% ignore defense. This is what a typical damage dealer would have, right? This is no Baron A4. It's just standard hit. How good is it when there are no debuffs out and there are also no passives? Let's see. Pretty strong. That was 180,000 across the board. That is very strong. The animation is cool as well. There's the archangels sweeping in, or the demons, I guess, or the archangels and demons. Who really knows? But it really is cool. So I actually think I'm more impressed with his base form as well as his alternate form. I don't know whether or not when we get to sort of the high-end arena, when you're fighting a lot of these polymorph teams, how capable that will be. That is something that only the top-end Krakens can really sort of attest to. People like Drock, people like Shinny, who play that area a lot more than I do. But certainly if you're getting him, I'm making this video guide right as at the time when people probably don't have him, but you might be coming to this video sort of 6 months down the line. In a PvP setting in Gold 1, where you don't see as much polymorph, he is very, very strong. Let's see if we can fight this top team here again. We'll do one more fight in the arena. Then I want to kind of showcase him in Hydra, because I think that's where we can really see some value. I'm probably going to rebuild him to get some more efficiency for his damage in Hydra. So we're going to boost the damage here. Again, there's lots of stone skin going on, so we can try and hopefully get rid of some of it. There we go. So I can absolutely target Harima here. This is where I think his alt base form is very useful. Harima will ignore all of my defense on my alternate form. She's going to basically bring my sort of 100% defense down to 50% defense. It will stop me from doing true damage. I don't really want to do that. Now, the only problem here is Ultimate Death Knight is in the team, which means that my block passive skills is not going to go on her. But we can use Seal, which would mean it would stop a lot of the gear sets at least. So I'm going to use Seal. And this is obviously going to stop the damage because the damage is all going to go on Ultimate Death Knight. But at least she's got the Seal debuff on her right now. Then I'm going to follow up with the A3, and then I'm going to switch to form. So what you will notice as well, now that I've put Seal out on one target, because my ally got attacked by Harima, I can spread that debuff over to someone else. And even though I haven't got debuffs to increase that chance to 100%, it's still a very good chance. It's a 50% chance here that I'm always going to spread that Master Seal. It is going to be annoying because it's protected. Now I can follow up here. Block active skills is now protected. This is what I've always said about debuffers. The difference in arenas, we've always needed to make debuffs protected. That has been the problem from the get-go with a lot of these situations. The debuffs are never protected, which means that it's so easy to just cleanse them off and it devalues them. Resurgent was super strong. Well, you can't really do that anymore because the value here is so strong. We didn't get any debuff spreading there, but that's fine. We're going to transform into our alternate form next. So we're actually going to transform here. And now we're going to basically start doing some crazy damage. And there is that damage. There was 0 debuffs really on the Mithril, and we absolutely annihilated. Didn't even have increased attack, I don't think, because I think it was... We may have had 1 turn increase attack. So even though you haven't got necessarily the optimal setup for his alternate form, he's still going to do enough damage to really make a difference against some of these opponents. And remember, masteries also can be defensive. Things like reduce incoming damage by 8% AoE. Those things like Wisdom of Battle to stop your Siffy sleep kind of scenarios. Those things are still valuable. So if you've put Seal from Karnage, then your Siffy can avoid that Wisdom of Battle. They won't get that block debuffs back. It will ignore Resurgent. It will ignore Blast Proof. It will ignore all of these effects that you have active. I think the things like the Cycle of Violence will get disabled, so they won't get their abilities to be reduced. So it's really powerful. Let's just finish off this Ultimate Death Knight here, and then we're going to have a little play test in Hydra. Where do so far, I think rating-wise in Arena, he's 5 out of 5. I know a lot of people might think, well, you know, you're talking a lot about debuffs. I do think in the right setup, the debuffs can be valuable. I also think, though, you just can ignore the debuffs and use his alternate form. So the other area I think this Karnage the Anarch can be very good is in, of course, Hydra. The ability to stack up and sustain 10 debuffs or up to like 7 or 5 debuffs. So we really can leverage the value of this ignore defense is very interesting, but also his primary form is a very, very strong debuff spread champion. So you don't have many sort of AoE block buff options, AoE decreased speed options. Then he can come in and do a very good job taking these debuffs. However, he won't fully spread them because he can't kill an enemy, because you cannot kill Hydra heads, you can only decapitate them. So that is a bit of a problem. He will probably also place Seal on the boss, even though Seal is going to do nothing for the boss because they don't have gear sets and they don't have masteries. So I need to feed this back to Plarium that probably Seal shouldn't be allowed to be placed on bosses because it's a wasted debuff spot. It doesn't do anything. You know, it's a bit like block active skills and disabled on bosses because it would work. But I just think this needs to be disabled because it's taking up a debuff spot that is utterly useless. But the swap in HP is very powerful. Obviously, you'd want to steal buffs as well. So I think predominantly his alternate form will be the way to go, purely because this is very limited. This ability will not work at all in terms of like any of these debuffs or the stealing of the turn meter. Seal will get placed, you don't really want to do that. His utility is really in debuff spreading and also the ability to steal buffs as well. So for example, here I've set him up in a team. I have no idea how InrY's teams are built and what he's using, so I've just pulled what he's got available right now so I can just have a little bit of a test on who is built. So we've got like a provoke, a block buffs, we have a decrease attack, we have a sort of debuff extenders in both Tahanarak and in Mikage, and then we're using Riho. Now Riho typically isn't used because it's all single target, but with his abilities, we'll be able to spread those debuffs because of the single target. This is kind of like a debuff spread approach. So we're going straight into Nightmare here. Obviously, the Torment Head is a problem, but 2 Hanomrak will hopefully help us not take fears constantly. So we can buff some speed up here again. So we can pick a target. So let's pick the Provoke Head over here. Get some debuffs out. We'll also provoke that head with Archer. We all know how good Archer is as doing that job. And we'll just start taking them out. So, as I said, we'll probably be able to play Seal, which we don't really want to do, because it will spread the Seal debuff to everyone. So it's great. The Seal debuff is on everyone. Wonderful. That's really, it's doing absolutely nothing. Interestingly, you can extend the duration of Seal. So if you use extend debuffs in Arena, then you can permanently extend the Seal debuff on the enemy. But he will counterattack a lot. So here's where his debuff spreading capabilities are much stronger than sort of any debuff spread. It used to be Akhenaten was the best debuff spread champion in the game. He's constantly going to be attacking whenever he is taking damage. So I've managed to so far spread a decreased defense to all targets. What else can we spread here? We can sort of hit with the triple hit. How strong is it? It's still pretty good. It's the 300k A1 hit. So even though his alternate form clearly has more damage, his base form there did quite a good amount of damage. So we've now spread decreased crit rate on all enemies. Now we spread Hex on all enemies. And remember, it's him or an ally. So it doesn't even matter if you're getting attacked by a single target head. Because as long as it's attacking an ally, you're going to counterattack. And you're just going to keep spreading debuffs. So I do think there's a lot of value to be had in this alternate form. You may not necessarily use this ability unless you wanted to get rid of like a reflect buff, because it does steal and exchange HP. You might just want to A1 all the time because it's doing quite a lot of damage, 200k. And we can now reho A2 again just to refresh the buffs, get a provoke back out there. Extend the duration of those debuffs and our buffs. We did get feared, which is a bit frustrating. And he is also weak affinity to the Fearhead in this rotation. So you always got to remember he's not void like other champions. So that's potentially a problem. But between all of our debuff spreading now, we have fully spread all of the debuffs that Riho can place on all enemies. And that is incredibly useful for someone like a Lydia. Lydia has block buffs. If you can successfully spread the debuff across all enemies without necessarily having inconsistencies, then actually having just a single target block buffs might be enough, and you don't have to bring an Ugo, you don't have to bring an Uko, you don't have to bring someone just for the block buffs role. You can save yourself a team role for more damage, and that is very valuable in the current meta of Hydra Clash, where it's all about how much damage you can deal. See, we just spread the buff again, and we are just permanently spreading debuffs everywhere. He did resist there, which is a bit frustrating. Now, the nice thing as well, because he's got accuracy multipliers, you can build him with the accuracy and not punish his damage, because he's going to increase those damage as much as he can. So we're getting closer now to being able to kill some heads. Again, we've spread the block buffs again. We can re-provoke. Every single enemy has 10 or more debuffs. I'm pretty sure if I just swap form right now and just AoE, it's going to do so much damage. Not bad. Remember, AoE damage in Hydra is penalized. You lose about half on average of your AoE damage. It is a bit of a problem. So keep that in mind, that, you know, when you are using his alternate form, his A1 will do a lot more damage than his A3. Got some debuff spreads going on here. We can start, hopefully, doing some damage. So we got some decapitated head bonuses. We can kind of see how much damage it's going to do now. So here's what I was saying about his A1. It's now going to ignore 10% for every debuff on the target. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because the decapitation bonus counts as a debuff. So you automatically, the moment you decapitate a head, are ignoring 10% target defense. He's currently at 40% with 20% area bonuses. So we, by default, ignore 60%. We only really need 3 debuffs on a decapitated head to make this work as a full ignore defense. I'm just going to A1 this head on the right so far, and you will see the damage. You've got increased attack, we've got everything we need. 622 and 600, so it's a 1.3 million A1. 1.3 million A1 will hit with a Harima A1, which is a 600, so it's effectively 2 Harima A1s. Now, he won't counterattack in this alternate form because obviously the heads can't attack you. So you do lose the value of that decapitation bonus. But what we want to do now is hopefully spread some debuffs out that we can get some, we can AoE here. Now, on his alternate form, he won't spread debuffs. He's purely damage. All about damage on his alternate form. We need to Hanomrak's debuff spreading here in order to make this work. So we can just get some Hex out as well. A1. Throw in an attack over here. So we should be able to AoE now and do true damage to most of these heads, because we have enough. So we can AoE, we can test the AoE potential to its full value. This is the strongest AoE. How strong is it? 500,000 twice. So his A1 on his alternate form is way more powerful than his A2 or his A3, which kind of makes him a bit of an A1 bot, but it's still quite a lot of damage. It is still, significant damage here. And when you then are finished in the alternate form, you can always transfer back to his base form and start spreading debuffs again. That was a 1.3 million by Harima there. So, it does kind of show a little bit that he's not able to compete necessarily with the ultra meta for damage output, because these AoE penalties will just get really pummeled by the Suffering Head. And this is a good piece of damage, but it's not crazy. I do think his alternate form is super powerful for this debuff spreading. This ability to just take these debuffs and spread them across all enemies. There you go, look, Hex, decreased defense. That is where I think his true value in Hydra may come from. Now, the good thing as well, because of the way that Poison Cloud works and the way the debuff spread works, as long as you are attacking a head which has HP burn, you can still spread debuffs to the enemy. So we can still spread the debuff of burn onto a Poison Cloud head, and hopefully that will allow us to then target that head. Let's do his A3 here on the head on the right. His A3 on his base form is pretty good. Let's see if we get it back to a decapitated form and try keeping him in his base form in decapitation mode in Hydra, in sort of his, when we've got some decapitation bonus. See how good is his damage on base form when he's not in his alternate form in that decapitation moment. Because if we don't actually get a significant increase in damage from the alternate form, then potentially he's just the best debuff extender in Hydra, and you can make him do this role, and it'd be interesting to see how much damage he can sort of produce in that form. So we've got our first decapitation bonus here. Again, we can just A1 attack here, spread some debuffs, do some decent damage. So we've got some buffs for the first time, and this is where the A2 might be more useful, because we might actually want to get rid of the ally protection buffs, for example. And that's where his A2 that's where his A2 will be a little bit more useful, whereas previously it wasn't. So for example, if I just want to get rid of the ally protection, I can steal those buffs, get rid of it, and I can steal the ally protection to myself. We killed the Suffering Head, so we removed it, so it's not quite the same thing. But that's kind of like what you can do. And now we just want to try and get some more debuff spreading, and we want to try and kill this head. You can see like the amount of debuffs we are able to sustain between Hanorach and Karnage's A1, because he is constantly counterattacking as well, is significant. So let's do an A3 test on the head of Suffering. So this is the highest defense head, so it's a very good test. We don't really have increased attack. Actually, let's just wait one more time to see where we get increased attack. We need to wait for Mikage's increased attack. So it still did 400,000 twice on an A1 without increased attack. I don't think you need his alternate form, if I'm being honest. I think you can get away with just staying in his base form and just being able to permanently extend these buffs. Right, we've got to increase attack now. Then we spread some more debuffs. And the key thing about decapitated moments is, can you keep the decreased speed on? The more decreased speed you can sustain, the more powerful, you can do more damage, because you can keep them decapitated for longer. So this is a good test now. Increase attack. We've got all the debuffs we want out on this head of Suffering. This is the tankiest head. How much does it do? It's doing about 250 to 390. I think we hit Helm Smasher proc there because we're not obviously doing 100% ignore defense. It's doing somewhere in the region of 750,000 on that A3. And every single time, we're obviously spreading debuffs all the time. Personally, on this playtest, I think his alternate form is nowhere near the strength of his base form. And in PvE settings, you just keep doing this. The amount of debuffs I'm permanently sustaining, because I can effectively use a single target debuff. Remember, I have no AoE decreased defense. I have no AoE weaken. I have no AoE decreased crit rate. All of these things, all AoE HP burn, all of these things are coming from Riho, and I've burned every single enemy. I've got decreased crit rate on pretty much every single enemy. It's completely covered using one single target debuff. I would say avoid using the A2 so you don't waste a debuff spot with Zeal. There you go. 800 to 900,000 A1s on his base form. It's good. It's really, really good. It's good enough to have a utility damage dealer. Honestly, I think he's great. Now, I know a lot of you by now probably thinking this has been a 50-minute video, kind of showcasing a champion that you can't even get because it's going to take you a while. As long as you keep pumping through a bit of City of Sintranos, you'll always keep getting candles. You know, even if you don't get all 101 stages done, it'll take you about 9 months. That's how long it takes you to do this. So you will get it eventually. You will get this champion, and you can see the absolute value that he brings in terms of sustaining the volume of debuffs that you need to keep this going. I think it's especially powerful alongside a two Hanumak and a Mikage, because once you've extended them, you can sort of extend them, and you've got a secondary form of a debuff extension. He's probably going to get one shot by this Head of Wrath right now because we are totally squishy. Oh, we did live. We did survive it. Constantly chipping away at that. At this point is when you kind of you do want his alternate form for healing at this point, but we're going to keep him in his base form. We're just going to keep hitting this Head of Suffering. We're going to keep debuff spreading. I think we've actually spread all the debuffs we possibly could even spread at this point. I don't think there's any other debuffs we could spread, so that's kind of like why you're not seeing much anymore. But there we go. Decrease speed, respread to all other enemies. So he can act as a utility damage dealer, which is very rare. Normally you either have utility that does no damage, or you have damage that does no utility. It's very rare that you can have this triple, double threat here where we can just pump some damage out to everyone. And because his base form is very single target, it's much better for Hydra. It's much cleaner to use in Hydra because single target damage is much better in Hydra. I'll run this through now to boss turn 50, and we'll see kind of like where the damage spread is. We've got a full-blooded Harima here. I have no doubt that this Harima is very strongly built because of the way the rest of the account is. I obviously don't know all the champion builds, but I would imagine this is an incredibly strong Harima. So we'll see how he compares in terms of damage output to that Harima. Got a weak hit and a strong hit there. And remember, he's going to counterattack a lot in this form. Almost any time an ally gets attacked, he's going to counterattack. So that's chipping damage constantly. If you've got, say, a consumed champion and that enemy head attacks you, well, that's just going to chip away at that consumption. And all those little bits of damage you can get in all really add up. And before you realize it, you'll have a 200,000 key. Now, we did get some decapitation and respawns. So at this point, we now need to spread some debuffs back out. So decrease defense out on everyone automatically. That's really powerful. So we're instantly getting good damage. Then we can start attacking this. I'm attacking this head over here because I want to try and spread some debuffs as much as I can. We actually killed it, which is unfortunate. So we now need to try and get block buffs out on everyone. Great. That's really timely because we would have had Poison Cloud. So we've put block buffs on before the Poison Cloud could have put on. That is really clutch. Sometimes your run will fail because the heads respawn. You don't have your debuffs available to you. And before long, that's it. It's too late. Now you've got Poison Cloud and you can't provoke. And then they get a cleanse and then that Wrath Head one-shots you. The amount of times that has happened to me is incredible. Let's pump some damage here. Spread some more debuffs. And let's keep rolling. So 5 more turns. Already 70 million. This is nightmare difficulty, I will add. So obviously a lot of these champions are strong builds. You know, everything here is really well built. So 1.2 million Harimas, of course. Spread some debuffs here. We go decreased defense, and we also get decreased crit rate on all of these. Now remember, decreased crit rate is very powerful in Hydra because the Hydra heads have 15% crit rate. So if you put decreased crit rate on the enemies, they can't critically hit you. That is very powerful. I know a lot of people don't value decreased crit rate a lot in a lot of content, but I think that's just because the champions that hold them aren't very good. Whereas Riho is obviously giving you so much more, including those buffs. So I really think that adds a lot of value into this thing. So all of these heads now, it makes it much easier because the Wrath Head, for example, can't critically hit you. One more boss turn and then we will finish it. We can finish with an A1 here. So without increased attack, we're basically doing 300,000 damage there. Pretty strong. Now, I didn't modify the build. I think the build InrY had is pretty good. When I did run it through the optimizer, it was asking to take gear off Garrel, but the gains was very minimal, and I didn't feel like it was worth blowing up his account just to test an ultra min-max. But certainly the accuracy modifiers, I need to do more deep diving on the optimizer to make sure that we're producing very good estimations for Karnage and for Gwendolyn to make sure that the modifiers are correct. Karnage is the only one that I know of apart from maybe Ghostborn that actually has accuracy in his multiplier as well as that passive. So we'll have to see how that goes. We can end the battle here. We basically ran it for 50 boss turns. And we can see Karnage the Anarch is actually out damaging Harima, and we didn't even change him to his alternate form. He's out damaged Harima, who is a very strong Hydra champion. I've seen many keys where Harima's easily the highest damage because of the way that it's attacking, and he's out damaging her right now, out damaging her. Now, I don't know whether or not that's because he spread some hex debuffs, and if he spreads the hex debuff, does that count as his damage? I'm not too sure if that's the case, because I know a lot of the times when you spread debuffs, the ownership kind of carries over in some places but doesn't. But it feels like to me, Karnage is a very, very strong Hydra champion, absolutely would go into any team, and that base role is the best for him more than anything else. So where are the places would I play him? Well, I definitely wouldn't try him in Shogun Grove because he's going to counterattack all the time. And he's probably going to weak hit too many times on 25 anyway, so not very good for there, or Sand Devil. For these core dungeons, he will wave clear exceptionally well. There isn't really any places where he's super good except for Ice Golem, where his A3 could probably block revive the minions. If he's doing true damage to those side allies, if you can get enough debuffs out of them, you can probably just block revive them and then smash the boss so long as you don't die to the boss. So that's not a bad idea. Fire Knight, not very good because it just doesn't make much sense with his abilities. And Spider, I guess you could steal the boss's turn meter. Not too crazy there either. So from a PvE point of view, he really fits nicely into like a Hydra team. Probably very good into a Doom Tower climbing team just because of the counterattack mechanisms that you get. Honestly, will be very great in any Sintrano stages. And really his specialist areas are in that Hydra debuff spreading role and then arena high-end damage dealers with the seal mechanic specifically. The seal mechanic is very good at locking out people like Rotus, and then you can transfer that into block passive skills. The ability to essentially kill an enemy, spread the seal and block active and block passive skills to all other enemies, and it's protected. Is one of the few, if only, apart from like Morrigane's A3 passive kind of concept where the heal reduction always goes on, the one that has protected debuffs. And that is incredibly more valuable in arena because you cannot cleanse it. People like Mithrala, people like Elva, people like Ancora, they won't be able to remove those debuffs, and you will take away a lot of powerful mechanics with that seal debuff. You will take a lot of it away. You will also take a lot of the passives that are frequently annoying, like Wukong's passive, Harima's passive. I think he's exceptional into Harima because he's spirit. Now, for many of us, it will take quite a while. As I said, 5 months is the initial, like the most soonest you can get him. This is like, as of today, this is the first day that anyone has been able to get him. So, you know, great job, InrY. If you are doing what I'm doing, where you clear all the stages except for the 101, so you miss the 40 candles every single rotation, it should take you 9 months. That's how long it should take you. If you're losing more candles, then it will take you a bit longer than that. But for the average endgame player, it should be about 9 to 10 months. For the average player, it could take you a year and a half, which means that probably this video, most people will be like, it's cool, but I can't use him, so what's the point? But hey, I wanted to do a video. I want to showcase our latest mythical champion here. Once you complete it, by the way, you will then instead get a chest of this quantity. So you can get a 6-star perfect soul from the chest. So it's still a reason to continue to do all 101 stages. You will get, for example, you can keep earning occult to get more cursed chests, same as the cursed candles with 100 occult cursed candles to some rewards. Some cursed chests can only be obtained once, which is obviously the soul, and then it's going to give you some of these. It doesn't say how many. It's probably going to be very similar to this, where you get like 4. So you get like, I don't know, 4 greater oil. You get like one of these greater oils, one of these coins, a 5-star chicken, and a book. But it's still worth doing if you want to do the grind, up until I would say the soul. And after the soul, it's a little bit less pressing because these rewards are not super worth it. They're also imbalanced as hell because 4 4-star chickens versus a mythical tome is not in the same category of difficulty at all. Like it's in a completely different world. Even 5 mortal souls, that's basically 1 week of Hydra. It's a half of a week of a Hydra. It's very crazy. So it's very weird how they balance these things. There you go, guys. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think of Karnage the Anarch? Do you think he's exciting? Are you still like eager to get him? His power in arena has dropped since the Siegfried rework, since more of these champions are coming in. His power has dropped. The blessing rebalance has made a lot of different champions more viable. And Armand is obviously a big deal. We're moving more towards a speed meta, so it kind of changes the goalposts a little bit. But I do think this unique ability where you can place the seal buff, kill the enemy, spread that to all enemies, disable all their skills with this, and they're all protected, is incredibly useful if you can avoid polymorph. And I do think in Hydra, his base form is much better. Actually, from this video, I have changed my opinion. I thought his alternate form would be super good. I actually think his base form is better than his alternate form. And his alternate form is almost like finish off the enemies. finish off the people that you're fighting. So there you go, guys. That is the end of this Karnage the Anarch guide. Thank you once again to InrY for allowing me to play test this. Congratulations on doing all rotations. You know, it's a very huge achievement. I think only probably like 50 to 100 people in the whole entire server has probably done that. So huge congrats to InrY for letting me showcase and test this sort of champion. It's going to take me another 4 months to get it, so it would have taken me a while to get to this video. So thanks again, and I will catch you guys in the next video.